Mr. President, I oppose the idea that those accused, those that have not had a case proven against them, those that may not even be charged with an offence, should not be afforded the right of anonymity. I've been a criminal defence lawyer for over 15 years now, and you may have noticed I'm also a woman. I have no interest in arguing for the protection of somebody who might be a danger to me and who might be a danger to my friends and relatives. No interest whatsoever. So why am I on this side of the motion? Well, you've heard a great deal this evening about people who are involved in serial offences, people who are involved in offences against children. Nobody would argue the amount of revulsion that every right-minded person feels when they hear those types of stories. Having said that, however, the thing that we are debating tonight is a very broad cross-section of a number of different offences. Sexual violence can include offences against children, it can include rape, sexual assaults, an awful lot of things. We've heard about the things that have been in the press a lot recently. We've heard about those people who are famous who've been charged with these offences, and we've heard about those at the very top end and the most serious end of the scale. I have been spending the last 15 years representing a slightly different category of people, and a category of people who are still captured by this particular issue. I have represented a number of professionals, a number of people with no previous convictions, people who are students, some of them, people who are teachers, lawyers, whatever. They are people who have been accused of offences and whose names have been put in the press. They may have been on the television, at any stage throughout these proceedings. You've heard a little bit tonight about some of the issues that are involved. Many rape cases, and that's what I've chosen to talk to you about particularly, deal with issues of consent. They deal with people who know one another, and as the law is at the moment, they don't have anonymity. Their details are given in newspapers, on the television, and it is very rare that anybody else comes forward. It is very rare that there is any suggestion that anybody else might be a victim that might come forward. The points that my friends on the other side have made tonight are very much the points that I would make in favour of anonymity. When people talk about sexual offences, they think about the types of cases we've heard about tonight. They think about people who molest children. They think about people who jump from behind bushes and are psychopaths and are all of stuff of nightmares. They don't think so much about people who are accused by one individual, people who there is never any suggestion that there may be other people involved, and the issue at trial is one person's word against the other. Nevertheless, they are dealt with in exactly the same way. There is no difference in the way that they are dealt with than any other type of sexual offence. No one would argue that those convicted of serious sexual offences are a danger to society, and nobody would be surprised that most right-thinking members of the community are not particularly interested in their rights and whether they have anonymity or not. The change comes when the person who is charged is your brother, your son, your uncle, your father. I'm involved in quite a lot of these debates and have been over a number of years, and many of the same issues arise. And yet, time and time again, when I am involved in speaking with the family of somebody who has been charged, they are horrified to find that despite the fact they haven't been charged with anything, that nothing has been proven against them, that their details are in a newspaper. Now, we've heard a fair bit tonight about what kinds of things might appear in newspapers, and let me give you some examples of clients of mine and the kinds of things that have happened. We've heard about a fair and balanced press. I'm afraid I haven't had any experience of that. My experience is that sometimes the fact that somebody has been arrested is reported, the fact that they've been acquitted is not. So what appears on the internet for time immemorial is that that particular person was arrested in respect of a very serious sexual offence, and nobody ever reports the fact that they were acquitted. Another thing that has concerned me is the use of when to publicise somebody's arrest or their trial, almost by way of a weapon. And I can give you one example of that. There are many, but one in particular, because of the case had been highly publicised. I had a young defendant, not much difference in age to many of you. He was a student. He was in the middle of his final year and also facing a rape trial. There was very little publicity in this case until the day came for him to give his evidence. On that morning, I received a very frantic telephone call from a very upset client who had turned on the television in his hotel room to find his face on BBC Breakfast and all the details of his trial at that point being told to the world. All of the national press were outside of court waiting for him on a day when he was expected to come into court and explain his version of what happened. When he arrived at court, he could barely string a sentence together. The officer in the case, and Met officers are not usually known for their warm and fluffy nature, was so concerned about that defendant, he spent the whole day following him around court to make sure that he didn't do anything. And it's in that context that I say I worry about the points at which somebody can use the media as a weapon. I can't say who contacted the press, I don't know, but the way that things panned out for that particular defendant were awful. It could quite have been the case that he attended court to give his evidence and was unable to do so. Thankfully, he was able to pull himself together and to give evidence on that day, and subsequently went on to be acquitted. We've heard by some of the people proposing the motion that when people are acquitted, that is going to be publicised in the media. That is not always the case. And even when it is publicised in the media and people are acquitted, how does it affect them? Well, a number of my clients, despite being acquitted in whatever period of time that might have taken the jury, still feel the need to move out of their family home where they may have grown up. They still feel the need to change their name by depoll, and many of them no longer live in the UK. Some, such as Peter Bacon, someone that I represented a number of years ago, who is the student that I was referring to, had big plans to become a teacher. He no longer felt able to do that. He didn't feel that anybody would employ him anymore, despite the fact that he was acquitted. He did not have any confidence in the fact that he was acquitted, that people wouldn't think, no smoke without fire. And to some extent, the opposition have made my point in that regard. They make the point that people may be serial offenders, that they may have done this before, and that is exactly what a number of the public will think, and that is exactly why people who are acquitted feel the need to go to the lengths of leaving the country. My suggestion is that whilst complainants, those who are making allegations, are given anonymity, that defendants do also. Not just defendants, but those accused of sexual offences. I see no reason why judges cannot be left to make a decision as to whether names should be publicised or not, if there is felt to be any suggestion that there may be other victims. The cases that I have described to you today are very limited. in terms of the type of case, but my personal experience in the last 15 years is that those are the majority of the cases before the courts. And I would ask this House to consider how they would feel if they were charged with an offence of this nature and knew very well that they were not guilty, and how they would feel if their names were attached to that type of offence for time immemorial, and how they would feel if the press reported their arrest and perhaps didn't report their acquittal. Thank you.